Alright guys, so I'm going to power up my computer here, and I don't have a good way to record the actual BIOS settings, but basically on the VIO you hold this assist button if you have the assist button or whatever button it is that you would normally do to get into whatever rescue settings that you have. In this case I'm going to start from the USB with the eGPU USB plugged in, and I'm going to go to the menu based options here. So it's going to do a bunch of stuff, and it's going to go through. And it'll tell you this. Now, this, unless you have another problem where you have an older machine and basically there's not enough system space for it to be allocated anywhere in any of the buses, you can basically ignore this section. So you're going to hit enter, and there are a couple of things that you're going to need to do. This looks a little bit complicated at first, but the most important part is you want to go to these PCIe ports right here, and you're going to go ahead and hit enable port. Now, in my case, the port that my GPU is on, as you can see over here, is port 3. It says Nvidia. That's already been enabled, but before it used to be labeled as P3. So what I ended up doing is I ended up going ahead and hitting enter. When you hit enter that way, basically what happens is it will say, hey, enable PCIe ports. It does a bunch of stuff. You hit enter to return to the menu. It takes a little bit of time, then it returns back. Now, another really important part here is that when you have done this, you also want to make sure that it's running at Gen 2 speeds and not Gen 1. It may depend on your computer, but generally speaking, you want to be running at Gen 2 speeds. So as you can see, my speed right here is port 3 1.2, meaning that instead of running at 2.5 gigabits, it's running at 5. So, again, you're going to basically go ahead and hit enter on this. In my case, I already have, basically it just says, hey, do you want to hit, select this speed? You say yes. If for whatever reason you're having issues with the devices, you can actually hit enter on this. This will initialize the device, in this case your graphics card on there. If again you're still having some issues, you may want to reset the port. This is great because instead of unplugging and replugging your eGPU, you can also do it this way. Sometimes if the link, for example, decides to be broken, for example, I have found that if I remove the battery from my laptop for too long, or I just let it run out of juice, some of the settings get erased. So over time, I'll just go in and say, hey, retrain the link. That basically tells it, hey, go ahead and basically enable this link on the machine. Now, you can also go in here and it gives you a bunch of different things. You can kind of ignore this for the most part, since for the most part, most of you guys will have the dedicated GPU turned off. And obviously you want to keep your integrated GPU on just for the sake of being able to actually see a display in case something does go wrong. Pretty important to have that one on because basically all you need to do in Windows at that point is make sure that all of your games are running on the high power GPU as opposed to the integrated, and I'll go through and let you guys know how to do that. Now, for those of you that do end up having the issue where you go into Device Manager and it says, hey, there's not enough basically resources for our graphics card, what you're actually going to do in here is you're going to select this 56.25. You're going to hit enter. It's going to give you a warning, and then you're going to say run compaction. Now, occasionally what will happen is it will ask you for things like the DSDT file, and it'll ask you for a couple other things such as that make devcon issue that appeared a little bit earlier. And I'm going to get into that in a separate video because that particular video will just take an incredibly long time to do, since that process in and of itself is about a 2-hour process to get it set up that way. And I believe that that mostly applies to older machines where this is still an issue. But once you have run the compaction, basically what you're going to go ahead and do is you're going to go into chain loader. Sometimes it's stuck on MBR2, so you're going to select MBR and you're going to hit test run. In my case, I'm basically just going to hit test run anyway. It's going to say a bunch of stuff. Hey, blah, blah, blah. It might be an issue, it might not be. So you just hit enter and you continue in here. As you can see, my external GPU is in fact running. It's plugged in and it's currently on. So I'm going to skip disk checking here and we'll go straight into the desktop. And I'm going to pause for a second here as I type in my password, and then we'll resume immediately. Okay guys, so in this part of the video I'm going to be taking a look at what sort of errors you can possibly have I'm also going to be taking a look and seeing if we can't resolve additional errors. Now, the first one that we've gone over here is the error 12, which is that the card does not show up at all. Now, one of the ones that we're going to be looking at next now is the error 43. And again, in this part, you want to make sure that you have the power supply to the graphics card constantly connected, and we'll continue from there on. So, this error 43, what is the issue? Well, most likely it has to do with the fact that you have a GTX 10 series card, and basically the newer drivers, such as anything 3.72 and 90 or higher, are not working. And you can tell if usually if you go into GPU-Z and you check your clock information and it's being misreported, chances are your GPU is not initializing properly, and that'll be being caused again by that driver, and also a yellow question mark in the device manager. So how do you solve this issue? Well, I'm going to show you guys exactly what you need to do. This usually applies to the mpcie or M.2 specific cards that you're using. So if, for example, you're using the Beast or one of the HW Tools cards in a non-hot pluggable interface, just like mine, this is most likely the error that you're going to run into when dealing with this sort of problem. Now, I'm going to show you here, this is another link of how to go about and solve this issue. It's very important that you take a look and download Display Driver Uninstaller. This is going to be one of the first steps that you're going to want to do. One of the next things you're going to want to do is get an older driver. So specifically, you're going to get 368.81. And once you've downloaded that driver, again, make sure that you have your eGPU installed, be it an M.2 or mpcie slot. Just make sure that it is in there. Now, what we're going to do next here is we're going to open up this this driver program with 7-zip or WinZip, whatever your favorite happens to be. It doesn't matter what software you use to open it up, just so long as you're able to get it open. You're going to find the file called display.driver. This will be pretty important. It's hidden within the software itself within the zip file. And next, you're going to open up nv.dspi.inf. And what you're going to do is you're going to insert this particular line in there, which corresponds to your card, which you can find by following this link over here. So we're going to open that in a new tab, and I'll include this in the description as well. This has all of your cards, information as far as the device ID is concerned. So you can see all kinds of cards that are in there, and it has the specific device ID that we're going to need to put in there. Very important that you copy this down. Specifically, you want to copy down those 4 digits after the 0x, and I'll kind of explain that later on just so you guys don't forget. So again, go back in here. You're going to find and copy, the lines as you see them here, and you're going to modify just those 4 digits. So again, go back in here, grab the 4 digits, make sure it's everything after the 0x. So grab the 4 digits, paste them in, and you'll have the information that you need. Now, the second section, you're going to copy it as is right here, and then you're going to only modify everything after the underscore. So again, just the 4 digits of your device ID. So just like in the beginning, you see right there. Now, the next part is you're going to actually need to scroll down and find these particular lines that have your card's name in them. And again, same thing applies. After the dev dot, you'll paste that 4-digit device ID, and then you just type in whatever the name of your card happens to be. You can find that online, or you can find it on the packaging. It's entirely your call. It doesn't really matter what it is. Just save it, and you'll be done with that section for the time being. So a very important step here. Now, what you're going to need to do now is you're going to need to basically get your driver set up. But before we do that, you actually need to go ahead and uninstall the driver. So to do that, what you're going to need to do is go into Advanced Startup here. So I'll show you guys how to get into that. They give you a very rough overview, but if you go to Start and you go to Settings here, and then you go to Update and Security, so scroll over until you see that. You're going to go to Recovery, and then Advanced Startup, and you'll say Restart Now. A little menu is going to pop up, and what you're going to want to hit is Safe Mode or Safe Mode with Networking. It depends on which one you want to do. Once you've booted into Windows, you're going to run Display Driver Uninstaller and select Clean and No Restart. This is very important. Do not restart your machine. Now, after you've done that, you're again going to go into advanced startup just like we did before, and you're going to, this time when it reboots, disable driver signature enforcement. It's another option that you get to choose. Again, highly important because our driver is now unsigned. Okay, so let's take a look at this. Once again, we're going to be seeing that you have this modified driver now. So you're going to install the driver. It will also install PhysicsX, so you don't need to worry about that. What is important is that you do not reboot. If you do happen to get a black screen, follow the instructions here. Have the power button pre-configured to put your computer to sleep. Now wait a couple of seconds, turn it back on, and you'll basically have your computer back up and running and installing the driver. Very straightforward stuff. Now you'll want to open the registry editor and go to these locations here. So that's start regedit. Go here and find Nvidia reboot needed and delete that. That'll be a highly important step. And after that, you can pretty much install whatever new driver you want. And in this case, it's not going to be a clean install. Now ignore what it says here, because again, like he says, it's whatever is the latest. So just install it, don't use display driver uninstaller, and you'll essentially be good to go. Just reboot your system and your card should show up in Device Manager just as it does in mine, with no real issues involved. Now, hopefully this video helped you guys out and helped you sort your eGPU issues. If you did not, I'm always available for questions, so feel free to shoot me a message here on this YouTube video or on my G+, and I'll be able to get back to you. And again, just look forward to seeing my video of me getting this GPU inside of my laptop once I get my heatsink, and showing you the build video on that, which is supposedly going to be pretty cool. So I'll see you guys in my next video. Until then, Crazy Welder signing off.